Guys, welcome back to Magic TV. My name's Craig. It is 9 o'clock and it's time for another Talk Magic. Now, today I'm bringing you an incredible interview with somebody you might not have heard of before, but I'm telling you right now, in 2023, you're going to be hearing about this person a lot. The person I have with me today has already released Magic through Alakazam, who, as everybody knows, is one of the biggest Magic companies in the world. But basically, we've got a bidding war going on in 2023. Rich is going to be bringing stuff out through Penguin, through Murphy's, through Vanishing Ink. He's basically beating them off with a stick at this point. He is super creative. He's absolutely amazing. He's from Wales, but we don't hold that against him. He is incredible, and I'm so happy that I've got him on the channel. I am, of course, talking about the one and only Rich Relish. How you doing, Rich?
Yeah, really good. Thanks for that introduction.
Hey, it's true. It's true. Everybody I speak to, you know, and I know a lot of people. And everybody I speak to, they always say the same thing. Have you seen this thing Rich has been working on? Have you seen this thing Rich has been working on? I'm like, no, I've not seen any of this stuff. It's like you're the person that everybody talks about with hushed whispers behind, you know, that sort of a bit behind people's backs, like the best kept secret in Magic. And I think I was speaking to Lloyd, who, as we all know, Lloyd Barnes, fellow Welshman, but also like one of the most creative people, you know, in the creative team at Murphy's. And he turned around to me and he said, Rich is one of the guys to watch in 2023. He's the guy that's going to explode. He's going to be everywhere.
Yeah, he really kindly said that on, I think he did a video recently of some of the people to watch, and yeah, he really kindly did that. And yeah, even though we're probably half an hour away we live, only got in touch fairly recently, met up and jammed, and then it's obviously through the Society of Secrets, got to know him a little bit better. And yeah, there's some really good sort of people over there, so there's a good hive mind of ideas developing, and yeah, I thrive in sort of places like that. So yeah, it's good. But yeah, first thing is I just want to say sort of you're welcome to whoever used to have the least viewed video on your channel, because I'm sure this is going to be
I very much doubt it, man. One of the things that people have said that they like about the interviews that I do, they love the Pete Turners and the, you know, all the big names. People love it when I interview the big names. But for me, my favorite thing is to interview people that maybe you haven't heard of before. Because, you know, I'm sure, you know, using Pete Turner as an example, or Peter Nardi, or Lloyd Barnes, or, you know, the list goes on and on and on. They've probably done a million interviews. Yeah. So when they're doing an interview with somebody like me, which we're kind of basically treading water and we're going through old ground unless I can find something different to talk about. But the most exciting thing for me is to see new people, not just new people coming into Magic, but new people getting that platform to show their creativity. And that's something that you are doing in 2023. But I don't want to take anything away from your accomplishments. We'll get into this in the interview, but you've already released some stuff. As I say, Alakazam is a big deal. I spent 15 years of my career wishing I'd released something through Alakazam. You released something through them more before I did. So, you know, you've already had products out there that are very successful. Peter Nardi, who I speak to almost every other day, has so many nice things to say about you. So, you know, you've already been there and done that. And I think a lot of people will know who you are, but I'm hoping the people that don't sit up and pay attention, because you're, like I said, you're the guy to watch. 2020, yeah. your year, Rick. So let's start for those people that don't know who you are. Maybe they're not aware of what you've done up until this point. I've made this very big grand statement of you're the guy to watch this year. Let's find out more about Rich Relish. And let's start at the very beginning and let's talk about your origin story. So when did you get into Magic, Rich? How did that happen?
So, do you know what? I'll probably go back a little bit further than that, because Rich Relish isn't my name. My teacher when I was 8 years old, my name is Richard Garish. My teacher when I was 8 said, that sounds a bit like Relish. It stuck. It's been my nickname. My friends' kids call me Relish. So it just so happened when I needed a performer name, I thought, you know what? It's memorable. It alliterates. It's a little bit of a tongue twister. It's a little bit awkward to say, but I just thought, yeah, just to explain that to start with. That yeah, so yeah, I answered to Relish, Rich, yeah, anything like that. But my Magic journey when I was young, I remember being in Cardiff, my parents, and there was somebody just on a stall selling, I'm sure you can guess it, dynamic coins. Mm-hmm. And yeah, just had to have it. they priced it reasonably so people could afford it as well, because I mean, from a small mining village, so far from an affluent upbringing or anything. So yeah, bought those, loved them, and then must have gone back.
How old were you at this point, Rich?
I think maybe 10 or 11. I think I was really young, but didn't do much with it. And yeah, so I went back and I remember buying a deck of marked cards, which is the old like flower marking system. So really difficult to read, but getting those and getting some, they described as tapered cards. So obviously a stripper deck. And I remember having those, but never really having the confidence to perform. As much as I loved them and I loved the methods and everything, didn't have the confidence to perform. And parents being as they are, once they thought I was into magic, that was it then. So they put a gift out, a magic set. And so and it was always the methods that absolutely interested me. And then I was really lucky because my mum worked in a small company and their sales rep was based in London. And he said, oh, if you're interested in magic sets, have you heard about Marvin's Magic in Hamleys? I was like, well, no, we hadn't. And really kindly, whenever he went back, he'd pick up the stuff. So my mother gave him the money. So it meant that I had, even though this was like obviously before the days of the internet and everything, I remember I had the magic set. There was little ones in drawer boxes. So like there was an escapology one and stuff like that. And I think it finally built up to the executive set in the plastic case with amazing. But through all this, loved the methods, loved the theories, just didn't have the confidence to perform, just absolutely didn't. And so moved away from it. And then came my second love, music. So all throughout my teenagers and everything, I DJ'd a lot through the nightclubs, all through university and everything like that. And then, I don't know why, but I remember it got to a stage where I didn't have 4 o'clock in the morning in me anymore. I was getting tired with the DJing and stuff. So I remember being sat at my desk and for no apparent reason, just Googled magic. I thought,
how old were you there?
That would have been about, I've been in this job 18 years, so maybe 16, 17 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm 42 now, so that'd be 25-ish. So yeah, searching online and just couldn't believe that you could just buy these professional tricks. It's like when you sort of peek into that world. And funnily enough, my first ever order, I remember it now, that was from Alakazam, funnily enough. I bought Chaos 2 by Mark Eldon, which was being re-released. Mark Eldon, re-released recently. Andy Nyman, The Hidden, which again has been re-released recently. And so those were amazing. And then there was a trick called Numismatic by Tim David, which was making a coin disappear. It was do you know what? I probably got the DVD somewhere, but it was really convoluted. It wasn't really practical. I think he used thread or something to make a coin vanish off a table. But yeah, so 2 out of 3 wasn't a bad hit rate. But yeah, bought those and loved them. And at the same time, I came across a forum, which luckily wasn't the Green Place, but it was a Talk Magic forum. And
okay,
I just lurked and learned for a long time. There was some like great people there. I think Simon Shaw, the guy who wrote Director's Cut, was there. Todd Landman was there. Dale Shrimpton was there. These are people who I don't now I know them as names, but I never met them. I think James Went was there under a pseudonym as well. But just immersing myself in that sort of, and it was a really friendly environment. It was really constructive. Everyone helped. And so then it was a case of reading the threads, going down the road of picking up Royal Road, Bobo, just to find out exactly what I liked. And I mean, obviously, all I perform now is close-up mentalism, and there were threads about it. But back then, it seemed to be a million miles away. I think I didn't really have the understanding of it. I didn't have, I mean, a lot of it was expensive. I didn't have the money. So, and another thing which sort of held me back was because my performing circle was quite small, just family and friends at that stage. For me to come out of the blue and suddenly claim that I could do all of this mind reading stuff, I thought, yeah, that's not going to work. So for a long time, I just performed gambling card magic like Jack Carpenter stuff, and like trying to learn, spend a lot of time learning and forgetting, like doubles and stuff like that, and second dealing, and because I thought, well, it's a skill that people can believe, and so when I perform that to people, they kind of bought in, but I kept getting drawn back to like all of these mind reading tricks and effects and things. And I remember that on the Talk Magic forum, Ian Dunford, who's a brilliant mentalist, he put a post up, and I think, I forget how many things, but it was a big list of different things from a company called Mr. E Enterprises, and I think it's Eddie Burke, a shop who runs it, and they were really reasonable priced. I think that there must have been 20, maybe about 20 different things, and I think it was maybe £100 for all of them. And he said, look, for anyone who wants a grounding in mentalism, you don't need to spend loads, just check these things out. And I thought, you know what, I'm just going to do it. And I remember buying them, and it was everything. There was stuff from Equivoque, there was ESP matching, it was just absolutely everything. All little booklets in the Perspex bags, and yeah, just some cool soap the Max made and stuff, and it was just brilliant. And for me, that's absolutely what set me off down that path of yeah. And again, it was just performing to friends and family and work colleagues and things at that stage. I had no intention really of performing as for a paid audience. It was just a hobby, something I rediscovered. But I think what I quickly found was I had the tricks that I like doing, but you can't, like, I didn't have a repertoire of 1,000 tricks. So once I performed the tricks that I do to those people, I was running out of people to perform to. And that's where sort of, from reading stuff online as well, I thought, well, maybe try a wedding fair. And yeah, did a local wedding fair, got into, I got one booking off the back of that wedding fair, which covered the cost of the wedding fair. And yeah, that was it. That was how it bit. But yeah, for a long time, I just did card stuff.
And there's lots of things I want to talk to you about, but one of the things that I do want to speak to you about is the fact that you're a semi-professional, because I interview people on this channel that are amateurs and they have no intention of ever doing a paid gig. Elliot Hodges, who I interviewed a little while ago, John Bannon, people who are hobbyists that just love performing. But then I also interview a lot of professional magicians that just make their living doing magic. You're quite unique in that you are a semi-professional and you go out and do gigs.
Yeah.
Probably could become pro if you wanted to be, because you've mastered the art of getting gigs. You're definitely good enough. But you have this mindset of you absolutely don't want to go pro. It's something that you don't want to do. It's something you love your day job. And I'd love to talk to you about that, because there's a lot of people, I get a lot of people asking me on this channel, hey, I want to become a magician. When should I go pro? And I think that, I was speaking to Graham Shaw from Magic Box about this, and he says, he'd never go pro. I mean, if he wasn't working in Magic Box or owning Magic Box as well as being a magician, he'd find another thing to do. And there's a lot of people with that attitude. So I'd love to chat to you about it, if that's okay. Yeah.
So for me, it's about a balance. I love creating. I love performing. I love my day job. I'm a data analyst. I'm a problem solver by nature. I've done that for 18 years. I love that. And it's also the time with my family. I've got a young family. I've got an 8-year-old daughter. So for me, being semi-professional is brilliant. It also offers me the security of a salary, and then sort of the paid gigs, then topping that up with a bit of extra income if I need to spend any money on the new magic props and things like that. Another consideration I've always taken is every wedding that you take on is a weekend you're not spending with your family, which for me is a big thing. So also like I said, I love performing, but the circle of people I perform to, once I got to the stage of when you're not buying, I think everybody, when they first get into magic, they buy lots and lots of tricks, they learn them all, they perform in lots. As you get a little bit more mature, maybe that's the wrong word, but more experienced, I'm not buying stuff all the time. So a lot of my friends and family have seen the routines that I perform that I think are good enough to perform. Same with my colleagues, same with my housemates when I live with some of my friends. So I thought, well, I need an outlet to perform. But yeah, it's never going to be a full-time job for me. And so I like I said, yeah, so I do weddings, but I only do maybe 10 to 12 weddings a year at the most, just by choice. So I can be a little bit selective then, choose the ones that are perhaps not too far to travel and things like that. And then maybe 2 years ago, I thought, obviously when you're only doing 10 to 12 wedding fairs a year, the cost of the wedding fair is big, especially if you don't pick up any bookings from it. So I thought, I wonder if there is an opportunity for a residency somewhere. And because of the type of stuff that I perform, I didn't want to approach a restaurant, because in my mind, at the restaurant, you're there to entertain the guests until the food arrives. So at any point you could be asked, right, well, you've got to finish now, you move on to the next table. And I think the Magic is perfect for that. It can be you impress them with your opener, you've got some surefire, short, sharp effects, and then you move on. But with mentalism, I think it needs a little bit more conversation. So I found there's a cocktail bar not far from where I grew up. And I approached them and I was really honest. And I said, look, what I'd like is somewhere to practice, to bed in some new stuff. I said, obviously when I'm performing, there's going to be some things that definitely work, but I want an opportunity to learn new things. I mean, you can't afford to learn new things at a wedding when somebody's paying you a premium. So I went in and I quoted them a really reasonable price, which meant that I was able to set some terms myself. So in terms of the start time, the finish time, the frequency, like I do 7 till 10, roughly every 6 weeks on a Friday, because on a Saturday you've got the rugby crowd, which people are a bit more leery, doesn't work so well when I'm having that conversation with them. 7 till 10, because I think I'd rather do it early when people are not too drunk as well, and like I'm leaving at that point. And it's been brilliant. It works for everybody involved. It's something a bit different for them. They get to advertise it. And that was literally me finding it. The only reason I chose this bar is because it looked nice, the decor. So I thought the photos were going to look good for social media. And they had some other live entertainment there. I think they'd had some drag acts and singers and stuff. And I literally just dropped them a message and called in. And yeah, it's worked brilliantly. And some of my mates from Cardiff Magic Society, they're brilliant restaurant magicians. They all work in chains, and they've offered me, like, can you cover this? And I realized the type of magic I do, I don't think it'd work in that environment where, like, if I'm in the middle of doing a big reveal and something that comes, or maybe I'm one ahead and like the food comes and you've got to cut it short. So that's why I've explained to them, like I said, I'm really happy. And I think that that's what a bar, if there's 3 people, I'll pull up a chair next to them, you can engage in conversation, and you can afford to spend 15, 20 minutes chatting to them, working through your set. And so, yeah, that's what I do normally monthly during the busy months, during the summer and Christmas period, and then maybe every other month during some of the quiet months. And yes, it's a perfect opportunity to get new stuff worked in, because, like, you know, by the end of the night, you've done the same trick 10, 15 times. And I also, so in terms of, like, not really a disclaimer, because I've got this sort of conversational approach with them, and I like explaining to the customers that, look, this is where I come to try new things, because by the end of the night, we'll see what happens. And if something doesn't quite go right for whatever reason, then I've kind of limited their expectations at the start with that as well, because I do, like, yeah, we'll go into this in a second, but I take a psychological view anyway. So it's always, well, if it doesn't quite work out, and it's kind of as part of my intro spiel. I say, oh, look, I normally perform at bars and weddings. I say, but I literally come here to try new things out. Sometimes people behave unpredictably, and sometimes it's not going to work. And then I say, so, and I even acknowledge that line as a bit of a joke. So I'll say, oh yes, and so I'll say, so if something doesn't work, I've got my excuses in early. But it does set them up for that. But yeah, so a little bit of a tangent, but when something doesn't work, I do a spectator as the mind reader ESP routine. So I've got, like, if for whatever reason something fails, it's not just, oh, it's failed, he mentions that sooner. You'd be like, my attitude is, I'll say to them, well, okay, yeah, maybe you're thinking a little bit differently, you're a bit more difficult to read. You're going to be brilliant for this. Let's try this. Make them the star. Do the spectator as the mind reader routine, and they forget the miss anyway. But yeah, that's why I dress it up at the start.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And let's talk about this. Let's talk about mind reading, because mind reading, but you do pretty much exclusively mental mind reading style approach to your performances now.
Yeah.
And I suppose I've got a couple of questions. The first question is, and this is a question I get a lot on the channel, if you're a mind reader, should you just stick to mind reading? Does doing magic trivialize the mind reading, or do you reckon it's okay to be able to do both?
I think it's okay for a magician to do some mind reading tricks, but I think if you're advertising yourself as a mind reader, then you've got to think, well, what am I portraying to the audience by doing a magic trick? And it's even within the field of mentalism. Like I said, so I've gone down the psychological route because I'm not sure who said this, but I looked in the mirror and I'm not D. Christopher, I'm not Lewis Laval, I'm not Pete Turner. I'm a 42-year-old balding guy with glasses who I'd like to think a little bit funny. So I'm like, I'm not going to get away with convincing people that I'm psychic or stuff like this. So I'm like, right, I'll dress a little bit smart, the psychological route. So that works better for me. But then that means you restrict, well, no, you're restricted. You've got to consider the effects that you perform in line with your perceived skills. Like metal bending, I love it. And I buy it because I'm really interested in it. Scott Creasy had a really good spoon bending routine open. Dave Penn lectured at Cardiff Magic Society, and I picked up liquid forks. And it's really good to practice, but it's never something I'm going to perform professionally because it just doesn't fit with what I'm trying to convey. And so I think that I still buy magic tricks, but I don't think I perform them professionally because, well, in fact, I even changed this. I found that when you're looking at the markets I did, all my advertising media and everything had mind reading entertainment on there. I thought that was vague enough for me to have on there. But I saw people backing away, and they thought, I mean, and I can understand that, yeah, if you don't know, even the word entertainment doesn't stop you from thinking, oh, he's going to be, what's this mind reading bit? So I went back and totally redesigned everything as mind reading magic. Because I don't mind that. I'm not, especially because I'm not trying to portray myself as the all-seeing psychic. I'm quite happy with explaining it to people as saying, look, it's kind of like magic, or it's kind of like the line I like to use is all my advertising that just says mind reading. It's not mind reading, and I say it's people reading, and then throw in a couple of psych forces just to get them involved. And I've even built my set so that it starts off with something relatively plausible. I love one of my openers I love using is The Wave by Max Maven. So it's a 1 in 4, but you get the 3 brilliant reveals. So you're starting off with a 1 in 4, then you move up to like a 1 in 6 by using like a dice or something like that. Then 1 in 25 for ESP cards, 1 in 52 for playing cards. Then you're finishing with a draw and duplication. So the impossibility is just ramping up and up and up. But hopefully they've come along on this journey with me so that you've started off doing something believable and they bought into you being able to do these things. And yet by the end, they're like, well, how the hell did that happen? So, and if somebody asks me, then I mean, it's absolutely not true, but I'll say, well, yeah, the earlier stuff that I perform allows me to pick up on things from people to see who'd be the best people to perform the more complicated stuff at the end of. And so even that's trying to get them to kind of believe what it is. But yeah, sorry, I digressed a bit. So yeah, I don't perform magic tricks. I buy magic. I love magic trick methods. But yeah, for me, it's just close-up magic, close-up mentalism. And it kind of gives me a USP then as well, because there's a lot of very good magicians in South Wales. Somebody who should definitely try and get on a show is Phil J. Phil J's an absolute legend. He's been doing this for more years than I can think of.
Well, I know Chris Dugdale very well. Obviously,
yeah.
He used to work with Chris. I know Chris really well, but I don't really know Phil at all, to be honest. Yeah, I've heard very good things about him.
Yeah, he lectured for us, and his stories were as good. His anecdotes and stuff were as good as the routines and everything. Brilliant. Then we got like obviously Jasper in the Small Space, who works with Frank and Brian and James Went. There's a lot of Jameses. James Went, James Piper, James Hogan, Jamie Williams, Taylor Morgan. Harry, who I know you had on the chat, Harry's the president of Cardiff Magic Society as well. So yeah, Lance Bowen is a really good scene. So it's nice. It's nice to sort of give myself a USP as just focusing on this as well. but also, you know, it's a really friendly scene, and there's like groups for people exchanging gigs and helping each other out. So yeah, it's really, yeah, it's really good. Lots of people to bounce ideas from, and yeah, and that's before, yeah, all the people at Cardiff Magic Society itself as well. So it's, yeah, really good venue.
And for anybody that's watching this that's considering transitioning from magic to mentalism, what advice would you give them?
I think it's a tough one, because yes, I just leapt into it, and it's a case I make sure start with your stuff. Yeah,
it's tough, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you can start introducing mental presentations of magic tricks if you're performing as a magician, like with playing cards, especially. Like, you find a card can be think a card. I think the thing that I didn't perhaps realize when I was acting as a magician versus a mentalist is it's about the process, or is it the process is the phrase thing, the fake process. So whereas somebody might pick a card, you tell them what it is, like, wait, okay, you've got to step back and think, how am I able to tell them what the card is? Am I looking into their eyes? Is there a demon on my shoulder whispering the truth to me? Can I see something through their facial body language and everything like this? Sorry, facial tics or body language. I think for me, that's the big progression from magic to mentalism, is understanding how you're supposed, or deciding, it's not understanding. I'm sure there was a Max Maven thing I watched where he said, right, when you've done a trick, or when there's a trick you like, write out 20 different ways that in theory you could be doing that. So like I said, right, is it that spirits are whispering to you, or are you picking up on, is it pulse reading, is it on facial tics? And I think once you decide what you want your perceived abilities to be, then you can build that into magic routines and make them mental. Like for me, the one, and I never say this, but in my mind, what I decided my sort of process is a bit Sherlock Holmes mind palace-y, but I imagine that in my mind, there's a massive library, and there's all these books, and in these books are all the answers. And so sometimes somebody's gonna present you with some information, and you're going to be able to find it quickly. So it's just giving yourself that time to pretend to go through the process. So somebody's taking a card, and you're thinking, right, okay, so I'm going to start, concentrate, and they don't need to know what you're thinking, but it's just putting that in. And so my internal monologue is, right, okay, so I'm going to this, and there's this book, and I've opened this page, found it. And so for me, the big difference between progressing from magic to mind reading is understanding how you think you're going to be doing that. But saying that, there's a lot of very good mental magic tricks on the market, and they come with inbuilt presentations and things like that. So people have already done that work for you. So if you've got half a dozen of those, you can start stringing those together and performing that.
That's really good advice. I'm going to ask you one last question about mentalism, especially as you mentioned Pete Turner a couple of times. And this is the question that seems to, I'm not a mentalist, but what I've discovered is this one question splits the mentalist community down the middle. And there's no...
Using my mind reading problems, are you going to ask about propless?
Yeah, I am. My gosh, I don't know why it does it, but man, it really splits the community. You've got the question is, what's your opinion on propless mentalism? You've got people like Pete Turner that can go out with nothing but his brain and make people think that he's like some sort of mentalist god. And then you've got other people like, that kind of think, well, I've got no problem using props. I do whatever I can do to give my audience the best possible, entertainment that I can, and give them the best possible performance. And if that means I have to use a clipboard or a wallet with a billet in, then so be it,
Yeah.
So where do you lie on this?
First thing is, I think there's good propless mentalism and there's bad propless mentalism, same as all types of magic. If something has got a massively convoluted process and it takes a long time to get a small payoff, then in my mind, I think there are more direct methods by introducing props. But also, I think you've got to consider the audience you're performing for as well. A lot of the propless stuff, or some of the propless stuff, needs the person to be, I suppose, sober, and maybe of a certain, like, need to have a certain understanding. If you're asking them to, like, think of this letter of the alphabet, go to this, I don't think it's going to work a lot of the time for me. But there are some examples. There's some stuff by Michael Murray. It's brilliant. It's some of his principles absolutely work. They're nailed on. They're not going all around houses. Yeah, Pete Turner, his life equation stuff. I mean, it's a brilliant, absolutely brilliant routine. Even like Drew Brackenstoss, he did some work on a pin revelation. And so you had his book, Architect of the Mind, which is absolutely amazing. I think it's out of print now. That's his real world sort of work in practical mentalism. And then he did another book on a pin revelation. It's called Elementary, and it's brilliant. So it's out there. There's absolutely good propless stuff out there. The difficulty for me is a lot of the propless stuff can be expensive, and it's difficult to know beforehand whether it's going to work for you or not, because obviously you don't see demos of them a lot of the time. So I think all you can do is, if you do like that type of stuff, is you've got to go from the credibility of the author. You've got to pick, I mean, yeah, somebody like Pete Turner, his reputation, like I said, Michael Murray precedes them, and then you might see them referencing other people and think, well, if I like this, then there's this. But yeah, I don't perform any propless. In fact, I've got my two main sets that I perform. One of them is more prop based, because I think that performing at the bar, sometimes I think it's interesting to, like, I do one little trick that's got 4 different color Lego pieces, and then I use Inside Out by Pro Mystic, which is a colored cube. And I think sometimes it's quite interesting to put these things on the table to facilitate it. And then my other set is billets and envelopes and pens. So there's a difference there. I mean, so I'm booked, let's say you're booked at a wedding to do the day and the night, you've got your 2 distinct sets, so they're not going to see the same type of stuff. So for me, my one set is more prop heavy than the other. I don't think I get better reactions out of one than the other. I like the fact that they're different. To the audience feel any different? I don't think so. But yeah, I don't perform any propless mentalism. There is good propless mentalism out there, but I think you've got to appreciate, yeah, how convoluted the process is and what type of people you're performing to as well. Sometimes, and yeah, I suppose sometimes performing for a paying audience versus friends and family, that's difficult as well. A lot of propless stuff revolves around people, or that I've read anyway, I'm not the most well-read person in it, but it revolves around people not trying to trip you up, whereas you perform with your friends and family, and I've had it quite often where they're gonna think of an eagle instead of an elephant, for example, in Denmark. And yeah, I say consider your audience, pick some people who you like their work, you trust their work. And do you know what? I think a lot of the time at conventions and things like that is the opportunity to go up and speak to these people, and they'll show you stuff. The one thing I've noticed about the mentalism sort of fraternity, for want of a better word, is everyone's really approachable. I've had conversations with, like I said, Pete Turner, yeah, Michael Murray, David Jonathan, the guys in 1914, and it's just from sending them messages and things like that. Just, oh, I really enjoyed this. And I absolutely recommend, when a product comes out, if somebody's had an idea with it, get in touch with the creator, because I mean, I've done it quite a few times and nobody's ever thinking, oh no, I think you're wrong, you should have done it this way instead. They're all genuinely appreciative of the feedback. I mean, yeah, I speak to people like Mark Paul, Luch, Paul Brook. These are all people who I absolutely did not know, but just from reaching out on like the internet and chat rooms and forums and things, and yeah, and they'll get in touch with you. They really will. So I definitely recommend people to do that. Sorry, it's gone off on a tangent a bit, but
No, that was an amazing answer. And I think you're right. I never thought of it this way before, but you said something there, which is there's good propless mentalism and bad propless mentalism. I've seen so many mentalists at conventions show me something that's propless and it's just bored me to tears, or it's been so convoluted, and I'm there as a magician desperately wanting this to work and paying attention and trying to follow the process that they're pushing me down, and I end up making a mistake. But then I see people like Michael Murray, and I see people like Pete Turner, and I see them just kill with it. And I think that some people think that they can do propless mentalism, and maybe they can't. They can fool themselves into thinking that it's something that they can do really well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, progressive anagrams. I don't think I've got the mental capacity to engage an audience through the process of a progressive anagram and keep it entertaining and keep it fooling. So I don't do them. You don't have to perform everything. I suppose that's the key. And there are some people who will blow you away with it, but I think it's understanding your limitations as well, and maybe not everything's for everyone.
Yeah, that's very, very true. Very, 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 very true. I want to speak to you about another aspect of your career as well now, because obviously we've talked about you being a semi-pro. We've talked about your gravitation towards mentalism. But one thing that we need to talk about is you as a creator. Now, obviously, I want to touch on what's happening this year coming in 2023, but you've released stuff through other companies before. We're going to talk about that. You've released product through Alakazam, and I believe Tricktastic was your very first product. Before we get into all of that, I want to know, what made you decide to become a creator? What made you decide to go, well, I'm in this community. I'm really having a great time. I'm learning magic. I'm learning mentalism. I'm doing all this. I'm going out. I'm doing gigs. Well, now I'm going to actually start creating and start offering this stuff available to other magicians and mentalists. Where did that all come from?
So it's weird. I never wanted to. I never set out to be a creator. But I think when you immerse yourself in the world, and like I said, I'm quite logical, and like I said, I've got this sort of career where I do problem solving and things. And a lot of the time, a new magic trick can just be, well, I'll take a bit of this, inspiration from this, and you just put in the pieces together rather than reinventing the wheel. And so that's what happened. So yeah, my first release was just an idea I had. It was called the Tip Switch. It was quite well received on the Magic Cafe. It wasn't loads of posts, but so it was something that sat on your belt, and it held half a deck of cards. No, it held a deck of cards, and then so with one hand you put another deck of cards there and flip it over, and so it would take the one off you and drop the other one into your hand. So that was something where I had the idea behind the principle. Didn't really know what to do with it because I didn't know about getting it manufactured or anything. Figured out a way that you could make one out of thick cardboard and just sent speculative email to a couple of companies, because for me, it's just the sharing, the knowledge sharing of the ideas. Like I said, I know you've mentioned loads of times, unless you're going to get a card tool, you're not going to break the bank. You're not going to make a load of money from creating. It's not the avenue you want to pursue if you're financially motivated. So for me, it was literally just sharing the ideas. And I think there's something nice in the knowledge that people across, I suppose, the world are performing stuff you've come up with. The Alakazam release was me just thinking about doing work with. I've always loved stacks. Now I don't do a memorized deck, but I think it started with Director's Cut by Simon Shaw. So a cyclical stack, and then like a porcelain sprinkle card system and everything like this. I was like, I loved them. I just always performed them. And then I had the idea of applying that to a top trumps deck. So the first one I did was supercars. But not only did, so I think this is, I'm sorry, I'm trying not to tip the method as well as how it works, but so not only by taking a card and looking at the face of the next one, you can tell them information about the card. The cards are designed in as a way so that every other card, so every card versus its neighboring card. So if you imagine the cards go odd, even, the odd card will always beat its neighbors in top trumps on certain categories and will lose on certain categories. And that's consistent throughout the deck. So it means that at any point, you can do a Charlier shuffle, cut them wherever you want, deal 2 cards, and you know exactly what categories are going to beat each one. And that's what the driver was for me, was the top trumps. I thought, well, if you could have a top trumps deck where, so if there was a trick to do with them, yeah, okay, you could tell them some of the numbers, but I think it's important that you'd be able to say, well, look, I never lose. Watch this now. I'll shuffle them. I'll give you a hand each. Right, you pick up your first card each. Right, this one is going to win on speed versus acceleration versus. So I had the idea, literally drew them out on double blank cards, and then went on to Photoshop and just had a go. I've done back when I was DJing and promoting, so I've made some flyers and stuff like that. So I had a really basic knowledge of Photoshop. It was good enough just to get a prototype done. Really happy with that. So, and this is, like I said, when I was young, I really wasn't confident performing, but coming up with this release, I thought no company is going to take me seriously unless I've worked it. And I realize now that's perhaps not the case because a lot of producers who don't perform. But in my mind, that was sort of the incentive for me to go out and start performing more. So I did that, performed it loads, and then I had the idea. I thought, you know what, this would be so much better if it was superheroes. Because I think at the time, Steve Rowe's Lolly Hero and all those type of things were out. So I was thinking, yeah, this would be amazing. So designed the cards using some of the DC superheroes. We got some of the test ones made, and so I thought I'm not going to be able to get a video of me performing it easily. So I just drove to Alakazam from South Wales on the off chance. So however many hours that was, I drove up, and so I got to the front door. I said, "Oh, can I speak to Peter, please?" And they said, "Oh, sorry, he's not working today." Luckily, I didn't realise I was talking to Andy Smith. Andy's an absolute legend, and he treated me really well. I explained everything to him, went through it with him, and he went through it with Peter. I had a call back the next day. But yeah, my heart massively sank that first moment when that happened. So yeah, we got the card, got them developed, got everything sorted, filmed in their studio for everything. And then just as we were about to put the order in for the mass sort of block of them, the printing company turn around and they say, yeah, sorry, you haven't got the copyright for this because these are DC superheroes. So we're not going to print any of them. So yeah, I think they've been happy with a small test run that we were using. So I did, and this is where Peter was brilliant because I didn't know what was going to happen now. But Aid Gower, that's Peter's Peter's designer, he basically designed a set of, I think 30 or 28. So he designed 28 new superheroes. Crazy, absolute crazy. So that's what the finished product. It would have been nice if they had the DC ones, but obviously would have got sued. So, but yeah, so he had the pictures of the heroes, so we come up with some names for them, come up with some little backstory for the cards, and he tightened up the design. And that's the one that got released. So yeah, a few years ago, but yeah, it was brilliant. Just driving up, being involved in the filming, getting to see. I think John Carey was up there for one of his academies, so got to meet John behind the scenes and everything. And yeah, so that was the first release. And then something else
that's called Agility, isn't it, from memory?
Yes, it is. We didn't have a name. I think that was just one of the categories, and we thought that's probably a word that you don't hear of that often. It is only like maybe heard on those top trump cards, but yeah, and the fact that they are not heroes people have heard of, you can kind of play along to that. Oh yeah, these are the cheap cards that you might not have heard of these, or yeah, these, or you could say, oh, you know how you have these sort of copies of superheroes, so they might have one that looks, and there's even one that looks a little bit like Captain America and stuff like that in there. But yeah, it's really fun, and that's what I take. If there's any kids, I still perform that now, and it's in my case, because if you're at a wedding and there are kids to perform and I just perform, because I just build myself as a mind reader, I wouldn't feel comfortable putting out sponge balls or anything like that. So I've noticed kids love a drawing duplication because they love a chance just to do some drawing. There's a routine I do with some Lego pieces that they absolutely love as well. And then the other one is agility, because they love anything to do with superheroes and they understand top trumps and stuff like that.
That's right. And so after agility, did you bring something else out through Alakazam?
So I had a couple of, not a product, but I had a couple of ideas mentioned on some of their releases. Because something that they're really good about is if you've got one of their products and you come up with something and you send them a little video, then they'll put it in. So there was an idea using the Assassin wallet and something on features as well. And so these are just little ideas, but I don't, this is the thing, I don't try and force the creativity. I think if I get inspired by something, then that becomes, I mean, I couldn't think of anything more daunting than like Lloyd Barnes gives himself an hour to create, or whatever it is, to create something before his next.
Yeah, but he's an idiot. He's a special kind of stupid, that guy. I mean, there's nobody else in the galaxy that can do what he does.
Yeah, but I've got so there are, like you said, I've been talks with some other people. There's some contracts and things signed, and there's also some half ideas. Like relatively recently, I was watching Sin City, and Sin City is nearly all black and white, and there's sometimes a splash of color. And at one point, there was a car in there, and obviously you didn't know what color this car was, because it wasn't colored in. And I thought, oh, maybe a nice presentation would be if you show people black and white photos with some key items in there, and they're able to identify what color these items are. Because I don't think that's, I've got no method for that. But yeah, that was something. Another thing I noticed, I love sort of crime, thriller, fiction. And what I think is really clever is when you're reading in the book, they can withhold a lot of information about the villain by just giving them a pseudonym, like the musician. So that means you in a film, it's more difficult because obviously you can see if it's all short, male, female. But I like the fact that, like in a book, they can hide so much information. So I think there's potential to say to somebody, right, okay, so if I told you that there was a villain called the musician, in your mind, is this going to be male or female? And do you think they're going to be old or young? Do you think they're going to be? And then at the end, you've got a page of a book, and at the point where they reveal who it is, everything they've said is right. And like, so it's, and again, apart from multiple outs, which would be a lot of them, I don't really have a method for any of these things, but it's just little ideas that go in a notebook and sit there. And yeah, so sometimes it is by inspirations by stuff like that. Sometimes inspiration is from a move or a method, or like just I'm a very big reader as well, like mentalism. So I've got to say this quietly so my wife can't hear exactly how many books and stuff I've bought, how much I've spent on them, because yeah, some of those are not cheap. But yeah, big reader, and it's sometimes it's hard not to be inspired when you're reading some of these other people's works.
Yeah, absolutely. So how, you say that you don't force creativity, and that's absolutely true. And but you've shown me before this interview started 5 or 6 incredible routines, and you were like, oh yeah, this one's potentially coming out through Murphy's, and this one's potentially coming out through the 1914, and this one's potentially coming out through Alakazam, and this one's and I'm like, bloody hell, people say I'm busy, this is just ridiculous. Like, what happened? Like, did you just suddenly get a burst, or did you have a whole bunch of ideas that just came to fruition at the same time, or did you just turn up the creativity dial? Like, where did all this come from?
Lockdown. Because I worked, there was no performing outlets. I thought, you know what, I sat down, looked at the type of stuff I perform. There probably wasn't enough of it to make a virtual show out of. I didn't really want to have to go out and invest in all the tech. So that was my outlet. So it was all the time which I would have been spending performing. It was a case of sitting down, playing with these ideas, tinkering with them. And of course you can't work them. And that's something I'd recommend to everybody who's got an idea. You've got to work it. Sometimes you've got to leave it and come back to it. Don't rush to try and get something released. The ideas are only going to get better. Like there's a very small chance that somebody somewhere is having the same thought as you and might rush it to market. But I think that's quite, that's not going to happen very often. But yeah, that's lockdown just gave me that opportunity. So that's why I've got a handful of different things just sitting there at the same time. So yeah, there's no magic creativity pill or anything like that.
That's awesome. So what advice would you give people that want to be more creative, that want to release their own products, or want to just be more creative when it comes to their own show and making their magic unique to them. You know, it's one of the things that so many magicians and mentalists want to be able to do, but it's also the thing that so many struggle with. So as somebody who's successfully created a whole bunch of stuff, and, you know, I don't want, you know, we'll talk about stuff that's, you know, we'll talk about other things in a bit, but one of the ideas that you showed me that's coming out next year is one of the best things I've ever seen. Like, so you're obviously a very creative guy. Is there any advice that you can offer?
Yeah, I think you can start small. I think about, so you don't have to go from, right, you're performing your set of other people's tricks to, right, here's something, use the next bestseller I've invented myself. I'd say the easiest thing to do is to start with some presentations. So, right, take something that you're performing, right, okay, so how can I add a different story to this, a different script to it? How can I make it different to everybody else? Or maybe how can you, and this probably goes back to something you were saying earlier about the transition into mentalism. Something I did was I took stock of all the routines I was doing and thought, which ones could I put a mentalism spin on them? So a prime example, I think Gemini twins, Carl Fold's classic trick, and I just did a version with ESP cards. And you've got the symbols matching, you've got the blank deck. So and then that's literally just a presentational. I got some blank cards and some of them with ESP symbols printed up. So I'd say start small, don't rush it. Maybe just try and replace little handlings where maybe, I think the more well-versed you are, the bigger repertoire you've got of moves, then I wonder whether people do that naturally. I personally stopped doing much sleight, apart from billet work, I stopped doing much sleight of hand with cards because I don't want to look proficient with cards. Well, because I do perform with playing cards, I absolutely do. It's a justified prop in my mind, but I don't want to look, if I start doing fancy riffle shuffles and one-handed cuts and things, that people are going to think maybe I'm controlling it. So, but I'm sure that with people who are good at cards, they've got their toolbox, they know what they're good at, so they're probably already used to reading a description and thinking, right, well, I can't do that move, I can't do that particular pass, but I know if I do this move instead, and I'll do a double undercut. That's all creativity, substituting bits out. Like I said, read a lot, taking bits from this trick, mixing in with bits from this trick. But first of all, I think presentationally, that's something that definitely everybody can start doing. Like, what are you saying? Where did you learn your patter? Is it that you have been inspired by somebody else, or is it that that's just how it comes from the trick? And how could you make that a little bit different and just mix it up? And before you know it, I think that they'll lead on there. Yeah,
that's great advice. I mean, that really is. It's that thing, isn't it? Creativity that everybody wants to. They want to create. When you come into magic, you put the creators on pedestals, don't you? You kind of go, oh my gosh, if I could be that person. It's like you said earlier on, you know, I understand why you're wanting to be a creator, because if you're wanting to be a millionaire, trust me, it's not the best thing to do to be a creator, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah. And like, I mean, magazines are probably less and less, but there are ways of getting routines and stuff out there. Like you said, if you're not financially motivated, if it's just to build your reputation. I mean, Chris James was on the Society of Secrets I'm a member of. He just put one of his videos up on Penguin for free. And it's had like 25 5-star reviews. So I mean, there are definitely ways and means of getting stuff out there when you've got stuff made yourself as well. Yeah, because if you understand, it's not going to get you there financially. So yeah, I think, well, why do you want to be a creator? Is it you want people performing your routine? Is it you want the notoriety within the scene? Yeah, maybe just understanding that.
Yeah, totally agree with you. So very quickly, let's talk about 2023. Can you give us a sneak peek? I don't want you to give away methods or tricks or anything like that. I know that you can't. But, you know, I mean, what sort of stuff can we expect, and when are we going to start seeing the absolute flood of rich Relish releases that are happening over the next year?
I think there are three things that'll make, I think there are two things that'll make a physical release. And one's a packet trick, one's using more of a, like almost like a deck of cards. Another digital one then, which is more like a marking system. But the other thing I'm working towards is, apart from those, I've probably got about a dozen different ideas. One of which I meant to speak to you about at the beginning for your opinion on, so maybe I'll touch you at the end. But I find, yeah, I've got some other little, not like maybe little theory bits. So I think there's enough there to put together as a small book. But I find that quite daunting to sit down and write that many words. So what my intention is to break it down into 4 even smaller booklets. So maybe there'll be 3 or 4 routines and a bit of theory in each one, with the understanding that and I don't know what I'm going to do with them when they're that small. Maybe I'll just send them to some people. Maybe I'll sit on them and just compile them until they're ready to put together. But in my mind, that's less of a mountain to climb then, because it's just right. Okay, few tricks, a bit of theory, and that'll be part 1. And I heard the phrase, which I quite like. So I think it comes from the music world, where they talk about the spaces between the notes being as important as the music. So it's and for me, I think there's 2 ways I interpret that in terms of like sort of my performance. Is that in mentalism, sometimes it's good just to be silent, especially when you're trying to process something, you're trying to look at somebody and read their mind, and that can get quite awkward. And that took me a long while to get used to. Is just literally looking at somebody, looking into their eyes, and just being quiet. So I quite like the space. So that in my mind, that's the space between the routine. But also some of the ideas, because they are prop based, some people might consider them mental magic, and mental magic sits in that space between mentalism and magic as well. So I think that's the working title, at least anyway, is like sort of the space between. But yes, I've probably got a dozen. Yeah, I think a dozen routines in that, and I've also got a lecture as well, which I trialed at the Cardiff Magic Society, and I trialed it online for the Magic Circle apprentice group as well. So I'm trying to get everything around the same time, because I'm trying to capitalize. I mean, you're kind enough to get me on this show, Lloyd, to said some really nice things online. So I think now if there are, some of these dealers do end up putting some products out, then at least it'd be nice then if I could go out to some places and do some lecturing and get these ebooks all around the same. It might mean that you've heard of me and then I disappear, but at least for that short space of time, there'll be something there. And yeah, so that's the plan at the moment.
That's good. That's good. And what else? Like, we've already talked about what you're going to be achieving in 2023, but I mean, you've done a lot. You've already said you have more than enough gigs. You don't want any more. You're more than happy in your day job. But if I asked anybody, hey, would you like to release a trick through Alakazam? Have Murphy's interested? Have this company interested? Have that company interested? They were like, hell yeah. You've achieved an awful lot in Magic. Is there anything left on your magical bucket list outside of releasing these tricks in 2023? Is there anything else that you want to achieve that you kind of go, you know what, I want to do that you haven't done yet, that you're hoping to?
I know what I don't want. I don't think the Got Talent shows appeals to me whatsoever.
Your fellow countryman James Piper, along with his son Dylan, did really well.
Yeah, he smashed it. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, that frightened the life out of me. I don't think so. I don't want to do that. Genuinely, I just want to keep, and it's really nice. I just want to keep going as I am. I've got my creative outlet, and so the more companies I work with, maybe I'll have more connections and more opportunity to put some things out. I've got my performing outlet, and it's balanced. It comes back to what I said at the start. Like this, for me, being semi-pro just absolutely fits my lifestyle where I want to be. And yeah, people. You gig in, people say, oh, you should go on this show, or when people realize it's not your full time, oh, you should do this all the time. And I explain to them that, I mean, yeah, maybe something I didn't mention earlier, I think, and that when you're the professional, you've got to understand your SEO and your marketing and all this type of stuff. And yeah, like I think, like you always say, it's show and business, isn't it? That frightens the life out of me. I can't do all that sort of stuff. So I'm quite happy now where I've got a little bit of a reputation. I've got some suppliers where I always work with, so I'm happy with the gigs I've got. I can kind of choose and choose which ones I want and keep going like that. So I don't need to have to worry about that. So for me, it's all about the balance versus, right, okay, if I was going to push to go 100% full time, what would that do to work-life balance and I personally think it might lead to me not enjoying the magic as much as well.
Well, that's the problem. When you become a full-time pro, all of a sudden it's not a hobby anymore. You have to take gigs, you have to make decisions that you wouldn't normally make as a hobbyist. You have to put yourself out there. You have to push yourself out your comfort zone. You have to learn to treat your business like a business, and it's not for everybody. It's just really not.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And yeah, keep things ticking on. Hopefully, the releases get well received. That's always nice. But even if they don't, it's not the end of the world. It's not. So yeah, it's just, and I think probably by mentioning them in this video now, that's my sort of promise that I will get things written up. They're not just scattered notes on my iPad anymore. I've actually got to get something sorted.
That's great. That's awesome. Yeah, you absolutely 100% should do. And if people are watching this and want to connect with you, Rich, how can they do so? What's the best way to get in touch with you?
I'm
social media and stuff like that.
Yeah, I've got a website, but that's just set up for the wedding gigs more than anything. So I'm most active on Facebook and Instagram. Rich Relish. I'm sure that's only. I think it might be Rich Relish Mind Reader on Instagram. But yeah, I'm fully active as a bloke in the 40s. That's the social media of choice, I think, and there's Instagram or Facebook. So yeah, just reach out if you like something I've done. If you don't like something I've done, if you want to pick my brain. And I'm active on the Society of Secrets Discord as well. It's a really good group over there. I really recommend that. And there's some great people over there, some competitions, so everyone challenging themselves. There's a really good community there too. So just on those ways.
That's great. That's absolutely fantastic. Rich, it's been an absolute honor speaking to you. It really has. It's something. Oh, we actually need to talk about one more thing before we sign this whole thing off.
Yeah,
you know what we're bringing up. You know what I'm bringing up. So I for people that haven't got a frame of reference, I have a tattoo on my arm and it says, "I love Luke Dancy." And you're responsible for that. You're responsible. Do you want to bring up exactly? Because I found out today that a lot of people that listen to the podcast or a lot of people that watch Magic TV don't even know I do a podcast with Lloyd. So they might not be aware of this whole story. So yeah, you're the man that ended up with me getting a tattoo on my arm. Should we very quickly just deviate for 5 minutes before we wrap this up and just talk about this?
Yeah, so it started on the Facebook page from the Magic podcast, and I just put a speculative message on there saying, look, because a few other, I listen to comedy podcasts as well, and they've toured and they've done live shows and it works. So it must have been January or something, because I'm sure it wasn't long to get it organised. But I said, you guys should do the Magic podcast live at Blackpool. And from memory, I think was it Russ Brown or Russ Stevens got in touch with you like that day or something, or
Russ Stevens, actually. Yeah, I think it was Russ Stevens.
Yeah,
I know both Russ Brown and Russ Stevens really well, so it could have been either one of them, to be honest. But I'm pretty sure that one was Russ Stevens.
Yeah, so obviously they reached out, and cut long story short, it happened. It was at the Blackpool. I don't go to every convention, but I was at that Blackpool as well. And so before then, because I know on the podcast last week, Lloyd wasn't sure whose fault it was. It was definitely Lloyd's. It was Lloyd's suggestion to stitch you up. And because I didn't know you at this point, and I didn't realize quite how drunk you were going to be on the night, that I was like, when Craig finds out this is stitched up, what effect is this going to have on me in the magic industry? But yeah, so the idea was that there would be a challenge, and throughout the podcast, obviously Lloyd being Welsh, there's a lot of jokes at the Welsh expense. So there were certain phrases that get said on the podcast quite often, couldn't fool a blind monkey and stuff like this, or the podcast or your shows. And I had printed them out, translated into Welsh. So all Lloyd and Craig had to do as a challenge was to match the Welsh phrase with, and they were written down in English in front of them, they just had to match the correct ones. What Craig didn't know was that Lloyd had all the answers. And
the dickhead got the first one wrong.
He did. To be fair, though, I mean, one of them, Welsh for monkey is, because, of course, Craig, when he's reviewing, says couldn't fool a blind monkey. Welsh for monkey is the word monkey. And you didn't even get that one right because you were so drunk. So
I was that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it just escalated. Like I thought, okay, it'd be funny if there was a stitch up, and then it was like it took just because I think Nathan Lindley was there, and he's a tattoo artist, and then it became, oh, I know, we'll do it so that they put a tattoo on the line, and it spiraled out of control in a way that only Lloyd Barnes can. And next thing I know, on the Saturday night at Beat the Wand, you're getting an I Love, because it was going, oh yes, it was going to be I Love Peter Egg initially, and then the whole quantum deck discussion happened, and it became I Love Luke Dancy. And genuinely, I felt awful because I didn't know you well enough to know how you were going to receive it. But yeah, it's a nice timestamp, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a story. It's staying there forever. It really is. You know, people have said, "Oh, you're going to take it down." Nah, I'm not going to take it down. But watch your ass at the session, Rich. That's all.
Because I can't make Blackpool this year, so I'm not going to be at the next one. So
don't worry, I'll be at the session. It's amazing. That's fantastic. Yeah, it's been really great speaking to you. I can't wait to catch up with you again at the session, in all seriousness.
Yeah, definitely.
And yeah, guys, if you're watching this, please do me a favor. I want you to do two things. First of all, connect with Rich and say hi. Leave a comment down below and let him know what you thought of the interview, because I think it's been amazing. And then also, finally, if you haven't already done so, pick up Agility from Alakazam. It's still available. You can ring up, you can get it off the website immediately. And it is a really cool mentalism thing. And if you perform for kids, you know, people say you can't do mentalism for kids. This is something that works for kids, works for adults, works for everybody. And, you know, I know you came up with it a few years ago. Superheroes are more popular now than ever before.
Yeah.
So it's definitely something that should be worth picking up. But Rich, thank you so much.
No, thank you.
Really, you're the man. And yeah, I'll see you again on the session. But one more time, Rich, thank you for coming on Talk Magic.
Thank you.
Guys, do me a favor, leave a comment down below. Let Rich know what you thought. I'm going to be back again tomorrow with another video, so I'll see you then. Thanks very much for watching. My name's Craig from Magic TV.